In the chilly late autumn of 1975, George and Kathy Lutz believed they had finally discovered the American dream. They were a young, ambitious couple, eager to provide a beautiful home for their 3 children. When they first laid eyes on 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, the young couple felt it was destiny. The grand Dutch colonial house stood tall, with its distinctive gambrel roof and quarter-moon windows that resembled eyes watching over the water. It was expansive, boasting a sprawling lawn and a private boathouse. Most shocking was the price. For a mere $80,000, the Lutzes could own a mansion that would normally be far beyond their reach. However, the low price tag came with a heavy, bloody burden. The chilling truth was that only 13 months prior, the house had been the site of a tragedy and massacre that gripped the nation. On a cold November night in 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. had systematically moved through the rooms with a high-powered rifle, shooting his parents and 4 siblings as they slept. 6 lives were extinguished in the very rooms where the Lutz children would now play. The real estate agent was honest about the history, but George and Kathy were pragmatists. They believed houses didn't have memories and that a structure of wood and stone could not hold a grudge. To them, 112 Ocean Avenue was a dream come true indeed, not a crime scene. They moved in during December, bringing hope and excitement for a new chapter. George, a land surveyor of logic and steady hands, and Kathy filled the rooms with furniture and laughter. But the air inside felt different immediately. There was a peculiar stillness that swallowed sound, and an inexplicable chill that lingered in the hallways despite the heating system working at full capacity. Seeking spiritual insurance, the family invited Father Mancuso to bless their new home. As the priest moved through the house, sprinkling holy water, he entered the second-floor sewing room. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted. Before he could finish, an invisible force struck him across the face, a physical blow that staggered the man of God. Then, a guttural masculine voice rang out from the empty air, commanding a single, chilling order: "Get out!" Terrified, Father Mancuso fled, unable to tell the Lutzes the full extent of the malevolence he encountered. As days turned into weeks, the house began to exert a subtle but terrifying influence over George. The once vibrant man gradually became withdrawn and temperamental. He complained of a constant, bone-deep cold that no amount of clothing could fix. He became obsessed with the fireplace, spending hours hauling logs and tending to the flames, yet the living room remained frigid. His physical appearance changed as well. His skin grew unshaven and pale, appearing like a man haunted by a ghost only he could see. Most disturbing was George's new internal clock. Every single night he would snap awake at 3:15 a.m. His eyes would fly open in the darkness, his heart racing with an inexplicable sense of dread. He didn't know then that 3:15 a.m. was the precise time the DeFeo family had been murdered. While the rest of the world slept, George would wander the silent halls, feeling as though the walls were watching his every move. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. One night, the subtle hints of a haunting turned into a terrifying, vivid nightmare. Kathy was jolted awake by a sensation of being watched. She looked toward the master bedroom window, expecting the moon's reflection. Instead, she saw 2 malicious, glowing red eyes peering in from the darkness. They weren't human. At that moment, the Lutzes realized with sickening clarity that they were not the only residents of 112 Ocean Avenue, and the house was far from the dream they imagined. They were trapped in a living nightmare scenario where the past refused to stay buried and the shadows watched. The transformation of George Lutz was not merely psychological, it felt like a slow, agonizing consumption of his very soul. The once sturdy land surveyor became a shadow of his former self, his temper fraying like a worn rope under tension. He snapped at the children, his voice carrying a harsh metallic edge. His health declined. He looked emaciated, his skin taking on a sallow, sickly hue. A persistent dry cough rattled in his chest. He stopped caring for his business, his mind entirely consumed by the irrational need to feed the fireplace, as if the flickering wood were a sacrifice required to keep some nameless cold beast at bay. He was physically present, but his eyes were often bloodshot and vacant, staring into a middle distance where only he could see the encroaching, heavy darkness of the Dutch colonial. As George's spirit withered, the house itself began to manifest its inherent sickness in physical, revolting ways that defied logic. One morning, Kathy discovered a thick, gelatinous green slime oozing from the walls and bubbling out of the brass keyholes. It had no source. It smelled of deep decay and old, stagnant earth, a biological discharge from a structure. Even more defying of nature was the infestation in the sewing room. Despite the biting New York winter and the thick frost clinging to the window panes, hundreds of large black flies swarmed the room. They buzzed with a frantic, aggressive energy, coating the glass and the furniture. No matter how many Kathy killed, more appeared instantly, manifesting from the air as if summoned from a different dimension of rot. While the adults struggled with these visible horrors, the youngest daughter, Missy, began talking to a friend named Jody. When Kathy asked about this companion, Missy described him not as a boy, but as a giant, shape-shifting pig with glowing red eyes. The child spoke of Jody with a chilling, innocent casualness, explaining that he preferred to stay near her bed at night. This wasn't the harmless imagination of a toddler, it was a sinister infiltration. George once caught a fleeting glimpse of those same red eyes through a window, and he realized with a jolt of terror that Missy's friend was the very entity hunting them from the shadows. The malevolence soon turned its attention directly toward Kathy. Her sleep became a battlefield of nightmares where she saw the DeFeo murders. She would wake up screaming, only to find physical evidence of her ordeal. Red welts and deep, purplish bruises appeared across her skin, marks that looked like the impressions of powerful, invisible hands. It was as if the house was trying to physically mold her body into the shape of its past victims. Desperate for answers, George began investigating the basement. Hidden behind a false wall, he discovered a small, concealed space that was nowhere on the original blueprints. It was painted a deep, jarring crimson. The air inside this red room was heavy with the scent of dried blood and ancient musk. Harry, the family's Labrador, whimpered and clawed at the floor, refusing to step near the threshold of that hidden, cursed chamber. The terror reached a pitch one night when George awoke to find Kathy not beside him, but floating above the mattress. Her body was rigid, her hair fanning out around her face as if she were suspended underwater. When he grabbed her, her face momentarily distorted. For a heart-stopping second, the woman he loved was gone, replaced by the face of a terrifying, withered old woman with sunken eyes and a mouth twisted in a toothless scream. Horrified, the couple realized their individual strength was failing. They gathered the children in the living room, clutching a heavy crucifix and attempting to pray together, hoping that collective faith could provide a shield. But the house would not be silenced. As they recited the words, a thunderous roar erupted from the foundation. Before they could finish the plea, the heavy front door was suddenly ripped off its hinges from the inside, tossed aside, leaving them exposed to the night and the growing fury of the abyss. The 28th day arrived with a crushing weight of atmospheric pressure that seemed to bend the very wooden beams of 112 Ocean Avenue. It was no longer a haunting of mere shadows and whispers. The house had fully transformed into a living, predatory organism. The air in the narrow hallways grew thick and viscous, smelling of copper and stagnant swamp water as the stench of rot filled every room. Furniture was no longer just sliding, it was being hurled across rooms by invisible, violent hands. The heavy oak dining table flipped over with a deafening crash, and the porcelain in the kitchen shattered against the walls as if fired from a cannon. George and Kathy watched in paralyzed horror as the walls themselves began to groan, a deep, guttural sound that vibrated through their very marrow. It was the sound of a structure reaching its breaking point, or perhaps a monster finally revealing its true voice to its prey. On the staircase, the ultimate terror finally manifested. As George attempted to gather the children, he looked up to see a tall, hooded figure cloaked in absolute shadow standing on the landing. It possessed no face, only a void where features should be, radiating a cold so intense it felt like a physical burn. The figure did not move, but its presence felt like a crushing weight on George's chest, stealing the very breath from his lungs. In that moment, the illusion of the dream home was irrevocably shattered. This was a place of execution, a site where the veil between the living and something ancient had been torn wide open. George realized with a clarity born of pure survival instinct that they would not survive another hour. They were being hunted by something that intended to claim their lives. The family did not pack their bags. They did not grab winter coats, heirlooms, or even the children's favorite toys. In the middle of a torrential winter storm, with rain turning to sleet against the windshield, the Lutz family scrambled into their van. George gunned the engine, the tires screaming against the gravel as they fled the house with the iconic eye-like windows. The children were sobbing in the back seat, their faces pressed against the glass as the dark silhouette of the house receded into the grey mist. They left behind their clothing, their furniture, and the remnants of the life they had tried to build. They drove until the lights of Amityville were far behind them, eventually relocating to California, seeking the sanctuary of the sun to burn away the memories of the Long Island shadows. They never once returned to collect a single letter from the mailbox. The vacuum left by their departure was soon filled by investigators of the paranormal. Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famed demonologists, entered the house months later and reported a malevolence unlike anything they had ever encountered. The Warrens described the basement as a portal, a place where the physical and spiritual realms collided with violent force. It was during this investigation that the infamous Demon Boy photograph was captured on the second-floor landing, a grainy, chilling image of a small child with glowing eyes peering out from a dark doorway. Lorraine claimed the house was built on land used to divert the suffering of the world into the earth, creating a permanent magnet for demonic entities seeking to possess the living. Yet, the legacy of 112 Ocean Avenue is as much about skepticism as it is about spirits. Subsequent owners of the Dutch colonial home reported no supernatural activity, leading many to label the Lutz's ordeal as an elaborate financial hoax. The debate raged for decades, fueled by inconsistencies in the narrative and the commercial success of the books and films. The property was sold multiple times, with each new resident providing a different perspective on the house's history. Critics pointed to George Lutz's mounting debts as a motive for fabrication, while supporters pointed to the visible trauma the family carried for the rest of their lives as proof of a genuine encounter with the unknown. The true tragedy, however, was the slow disintegration of the family itself. The darkness they fled followed them across the continent, manifesting not in moving furniture, but in the slow erosion of their bond. The children, once happy and carefree, were now marked by a silence that no therapy could fully penetrate. The trauma and the relentless public scrutiny became a wedge that even their shared survival could not overcome. George and Kathy's marriage eventually collapsed under the weight of the experience, ending in divorce. George remained haunted until his death, forever defensive of his story, a man who had looked into the abyss and found that the abyss never truly stops looking back. Ultimately, the question remains, was the house truly a gateway to hell, or did the Lutzes bring a personal darkness with them that the house simply magnified? Perhaps 112 Ocean Avenue was merely a mirror, reflecting the deepest fears of those who dared to dwell within its walls. Whether the evil was in the wood and stone or hidden deep within the human spirit, the story of Amityville stands as a chilling reminder that some doors, once opened, can never be fully closed again. The legacy of Amityville continues to chill the blood of those who hear it, a ghost story that refuses to die. The house remains, its windows still watching the street, silent and waiting for the next family to call it home.